All right, I am so back into Malazan after my little hiatus. Holy smokes. Uh this is my favorite series. Like bar none. It's so fun. And this has got to be if not my favorite book in the series, which I don't think it is. Like I do think I like maybe Midnight Tides is going to bump up, on the second read. I'm so excited for that. Bone Hunters, I'm sure I'm going to like it more. I do really like Reaper's Gale, even though I think about it not very much. I do like the stuff with the Lethri and the Edur and stuff, for the first half of it, but some of the conclusion, it's kind of like fine for me. Toll, so looking forward to, and then getting to the other stuff. Um, I think I'll go right into. I think I'll mesh in the whatever novels of the Malazan Empire as we're going through. I'm going to reread Knight of Knives, even though it wasn't the greatest, but I do want the refresher on some of the names and things, and it was short. And then I think at the end of Reaper's Gale, that's when I'll go into Return of the Crimson Guard again, and I think another one maybe comes in somewhere. But I've already read the Tales of Bocalane and Corbel Broach, which I don't have to reread those at the moment. But holy smokes, so excited! Uh, I want to talk about the ending of Subbook 3, which is like as S tier gets. There are a few moments that top that for me. Specifically, Fenner's Rev in chapter 17. Like if the siege wasn't cool enough with the Tenniscourie and Gruntle, and then the bridge burners show up. Um, we have the stuff with the before going into the rev, but we do have the stuff with the canoes. I think in the next chapter after that, and we get that they want to kind of become a seafaring people again and go off and you know very very interesting. The rev is amazing. Most authors or your average author doesn't create doesn't lead up the way that Steven Erickson does for chapter 17 and this rev, and then is able to pull it off the way he does, and then launch off to really what is going into the final act. Like it's such an amazing, I think technically you would call it still an act 2, kind of wrapping up act 2, which some of these moments, certainly like this one, is something that you see at series ends or book ends, and you just see so many moments like this. And I'm just going into subbook 4 as soon as I put this video down, and I know that there's just so much happening. uh I'm so excited. Let me go through. This is, if I could show you chapter 17 and 18 and 19, like it's red everywhere with stars in the margins, which stuff that I wanted to talk about for my first time through, and they're just everywhere, and sometimes hearts because like something has really hit me. The personal lament of Itkovian really hits me, and then how he's able to turn that around and offer something that he's not able to get himself. It seems like he's about to offer that to the crippled god, if that was the god who like shows up for a second. It's like whoa whoa whoa. And there are a number of things that happen in this portion of the book that seems like a pivot point in some ways to the series, but also is very deep. I'm struggling to hold my phone. Uh, there are a number of things that I think about, especially with the Genebacchus stuff, but maybe it's not even just that. I'm thinking of some of these bridge burners. I'm thinking of Fiddler and Memories of Ice. Just the title itself and what it might imply. But a lot of the stuff that it's going over seems to be this idea of maybe our regrets, our struggles, our our past, however that is, being a very strong influence in determining how we both act in our present, but also how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about others. Certainly, some of these characters have a really hard time. Uh, they all go a different way, and I don't know if there's a right way necessarily. Some of these people go through, they have an immense amount of trauma. Like I think of the Maiba, which is understandably more of a, it's not as exciting of a storyline. Um, Certainly the second time through, but it still hits you. And the way that she's dealing with this crappy situation, and you have people like Corlat and even Crone, and you have people like Kruppa and Murillo and Call. I forgot how big of a role they had in this book. No, I remembered Kruppa and Corlat and Crone, but uh, how much of an influence they had in trying to help this woman, even if they don't get any credit for it and can do it behind the scenes, not in a way that, they really want to make life better for her. Um, the Memories of Ice, it's like being frozen in ice. There's a number of people we could look to. We know that Perrin has, he starts off this book terrible, and he's considering at this point whether or not to endorse the House of Chains, right? And I think the term, or the talk with Gruntle, which was amazing, and we've seen how Gruntle responds to Wrath Trake at the end once he's been chosen, and then he's calling, what does he say? He calls Trake like Whiskers or something like that, and it just is like blasphemous to Wrath Trake. I love all the those priests, especially the second time through. Uh but anyway, Perrin, he's considering that. I think some of the stuff with the Rev might, it's Kovian offering, not forgiveness, but offering something to these people who have terrible background. And like Kovian has seen some of the pathway of how this Wrathfenner has gotten to that point. Something that even Wrathfenner himself can't offer to himself, right? Like he doesn't want, he doesn't want absolution or redemption. I think maybe I'm getting that wrong, but Ikovian is, even though he goes through this Rev and chops his hands off, and I keep thinking of Haboric, and I keep thinking of the calling down of Fenner, and like how much more we know about that. But Ikovian, man, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. You don't just earn that kind of chapter unless you've really put in the work developing everything around it. And the writing is just amazing. Just amazing. But I think that is a major sort of, foreshadow to some things. And we get some of that implied, as we keep going in the series. But I think that's a major moment. And I don't want to talk too much about it because obviously, we have some people here that are just reading this for the first time. And I do want to make it possible, but maybe at the end of these videos, sometimes I'll just be more blatant. Really, really cool. Who else? memories of ice, like Silver Fox, as you know, Kruppa wants everyone, all the Talani mass released. That's just what they want. She's like, no, I'll release them when every single Jagged is dead, because we've seen their potential. And you know, Kruppa's, you know, it's very funny. Kruppa's funny even in that part, saying like Silver Fox doesn't want to be talked to, and he says, you know, okay, well, take time with your hesitancy, or whatever. Um, but he says, you know, we're living in a different world. Living in a different world. That time has passed. It's going to be very difficult for a tyrant, a single tyrant, to, you know, to, you know, we live in a different world. We have these kingdoms and we have these empires, and you know, very different. There's no point anymore. It's folly. And so in that way, it's like they are stuck in ice. And obviously, Omtos Falak, this ice warren, plays a role in what's going on. This boat that's just come in, and you know, we'll see more of that in subbook 4, this Omtos Falak. And I keep thinking of Midnight Tides, um, which technically is like a prequel to, you know, I'm keeping an eye out for a couple things that I know are about to happen that, you know, kind of tie to Midnight Tides, or at least that one thing. Uh, Man, I love the Edur. Ugh, I'm going all over the place. Let me open this up real quick. I hope this is okay, this kind of video. I know some people really dig it. Gruntle. Makes sense that he's with the Trigal Trade Guild, knowing that, you know, Rathtrake's like, you've been chosen, you got to do this and this. And he's like, no, I'm going to make my own choices. And that's a big part of, even though it's the stuck in ice with our memories, our regrets, our vows, in the, you know, our oaths, in terms of like the Talani Mass and things like that. And we think of those two little Jagged kids were dumped into the Warren, and what they, you know, the word trauma goes around a lot, but I mean, some people in this really do have trauma. Think of what Talk's going through, but some of it is about change, and that's kind of like the other side of the coin that I get in this. That you know, we can let go of some of that stuff from the past, but also we can change. We're seeing some change with Animander Rake in how he's viewing the path forward with the Malazan Empire as an influence, certainly on that continent. And he's not necessarily warming up to the Empire per se, but he's saying, you know, someone's going to be here, and their laws are not, you know, more repressive than other ones that we've seen in the past. Um, Man, everyone has quite the interesting past in this. You know, like Calor, maybe the most interesting, horrible past. Uh, Zipping through just before I want to make sure I don't miss anyone that's worth uh, talking about. I love the bridge burners even more this time through. Picker is super underrated. I forgot how big of a role she had. And Bland, I like. Really, I focused on Mallet a lot. Obviously, we love Quick Ben. Trots, he left with the Barghast. I forgot that he did that. And I forgot a little bit about how the Grey Swords, after this Rev, and after, you know, we've moved from Fenner to Treach, or Trake, or whatever. That you know, they're kind of recruiting amongst the Tenascowry. We got to the chapter with Whiskey Jack killing the Tenascowry witches. It's really one of the powerful. I hope people read through that part slowly enough to catch the moments, you know, the soft moments in that part. Certainly among the people that are watching Whiskey Jack that just love him. Again, even Whiskey Jack has a hard time with his past and the things he's doing, and he can't offer himself the same mercy that others can. And Corlat has that. And we know Stawny's going to have some, she's going to keep suffering because of what happened to her here in Subbook 3 in Memories of Ice. And, some resentment. I mean, more than that, but like resentment for. Anyway, we won't talk about that. But who else? I like that Silver Fox is so interesting, and actually in the second read, I think I like her even more as an interesting character, and I even though I know kind of where her arc goes, just the battle between the three, the different people, whatever, or spirits, or whatever you would call them, like entities that are inside of, merged all into Corlat, that people are trying to kind of persuade and repress different aspects of it, but then you kind of find that they are all working as one and united. Very interesting. Like, there's so many different things you could just pause and think about and go, I wonder what Steven Erikson would like us to get out of that. Like, what does he get out of that when he writes some of these things? Like, obviously it's amazing with the plot, but good writing, it's allegorical, and there's stuff that you can really take in personally to consider or think about. What else? I really love the Barghast in this, and my heart breaks for the Talani Mass. What was I just thinking? Just as I was saying that, shoot. Anaster, very cool. Man, what was that? There's another part, and it's gonna kill me as soon as I put this up and I forget that I talked about it, or I forget that I should have talked about it. One of the things is, I don't think this is it, but we get the note that Kellenbed is indeed alive, maybe, because he was in control still of the chair or whatever. He's in charge of the Talan. He's the what is he? Don't even know. Is it at the end of this book in the deck where he would be? But you know what I mean. Like, it's still implied that we have these renegade sorts of Talani Mass, and I'm thinking of House of Chains. I'm very excited to get there. It's also, at the very end, we had this Segula ship or whatever it was, like this floating, but it's not Segula on it. It's this Talani Mass that says that they are fighting on a sail, which I think that's one of the books. Maybe she's coming from there, because I don't remember who this maybe would be. But saying that, it's not another Jagged Tyrant that they're fighting over here. It's actually humans. So, anyway, I don't know if this was interesting at all. But I really, really like this book, obviously. And it's just knocking my socks off. See? Knocked my sock right off. So, anyway, first in, first out. That's how book 4 starts. It's going to go with a bang.